The billing alert appeared at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, flagging research hours I never logged. I stared at my laptop screen in the dim light of my home office, coffee growing cold beside a stack of civil rights case files. Nelson Yarborough, 42 years old, cybersecurity counsel at our Little Rock firm. 15 years protecting clients' digital rights and data privacy. I'd seen plenty of system glitches before. This wasn't a glitch. The alert showed 8.5 hours of legal research billed to our largest client, Meridian Community Center, for work completed yesterday between 2 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. Problem was, I'd spent yesterday in depositions across town until 6 p.m., then drove straight to my daughter's soccer game, home by 9 p.m., Netflix by 9:30. I pulled up the case management system, fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. The research entry showed my user credentials, my billing code, even my standard memo format. But the timestamp made my stomach tighten. Someone had accessed my account while I was watching 8-year-olds chase a soccer ball. The memo itself looked familiar. Too familiar. I scrolled through the document, recognizing phrases I'd written months ago for a different case entirely. Someone had taken my old work, updated the client references, and submitted it as fresh research, 8.5 billable hours at $450 per hour, nearly $4,000. I checked the system logs. My credentials showed continuous activity from 2 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. yesterday. According to the computer, I'd never left the office. According to reality, I'd been gone for hours. The office security system would have records. Keycard swipes, camera footage, everything. But at midnight on a Tuesday, those answers would have to wait. I screenshot the billing alert, saved the memo, and documented the timestamps. First, explanations later. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Working late again, Nelson? You should get some rest. I set the phone down carefully, hands steadier than they should have been. Someone was watching. Someone with access to our systems, our client files, our billing records. Someone who knew exactly where I'd been yesterday, while they used my credentials to steal from our biggest client. The cursor blinked on my screen, waiting. Outside, Little Rock slept peacefully, unaware that somewhere in our firm's digital infrastructure, a thief was operating with surgical precision. They'd made one mistake, though. They'd gotten greedy with the hours. I opened a new document and began typing. Time to find out who was playing games with my reputation and our client's money. The investigation would start tomorrow, but the paranoia had already begun. The next morning arrived with the kind of Arkansas humidity that made suits stick to skin before 8 a.m. I'd been at the firm since 6:30, reviewing security logs and cross-referencing billing entries. The coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but the glen was getting warmer. Natalia Dresden had been my deposition witness coordinator for 3 years. She'd started as a paralegal fresh out of community college, eager to learn the intricacies of civil rights litigation. I'd mentored her through complex discovery processes, taught her how to prepare witnesses for hostile depositions, and watched her develop into one of our most reliable team members. She recommended me for speaking engagements at legal conferences. Last month, she'd suggested I present at the Arkansas Bar Association's annual symposium on digital preservation. The irony wasn't lost on me now. The security footage told a clear story. Yesterday at 2:15 p.m., Natalia had badged into the building. The cameras showed her entering my office at 2:23 p.m., carrying what looked like a laptop bag. She'd stayed until 10:45 p.m., leaving through the back exit that connected to the parking garage, but the reel was in the digital breadcrumbs. Our case management system logged every keystroke, every document access, every billing entry. Natalia had administrative privileges to assist with my caseload. Those privileges included the ability to submit billing entries under my credentials for review and approval. She'd been careful. The stolen memo wasn't a simple copy-paste job. She'd taken my research from the Henderson discrimination case 6 months ago and methodically adapted it for our current client, Morrison Industries. Same legal theories, same case citations, but tailored to fit Morrison's specific circumstances. To an outside observer, it looked like legitimate work product. The billing system showed a pattern. Over the past 4 months, Natalia had submitted research memos under my credentials, totaling $47,000 in billable hours, all during times when I was documented elsewhere: court appearances, client meetings, my daughter's school events. She'd been systematic, never billing more than 10 hours in a single day, always staying within reasonable parameters. I pulled up the Morrison Industries retainer agreement. They'd paid $150,000 up front for our representation in their employment practices audit. The inflated billing meant they were paying for research that had already been completed and billed to another client months earlier. Double billing. Fraud. Theft. My phone rang. Morrison Industries General Counsel. Nelson, I wanted to thank you for the excellent research memo on hostile work environment liability. Our board was impressed with the thoroughness of your analysis. I kept my voice steady. I'm glad it was helpful. The detail on the Burlington Industries precedent was particularly insightful. We'd like to retain your firm for the compliance training rollout as well. Burlington Industries. That was the case name from the Henderson memo. Natalia had forgotten to change one reference when she'd adapted my old work. The client was praising research I'd done for someone else, billed at premium rates for work that had taken me weeks to complete the first time. After the call ended, I sat in the silence of my office, processing the scope of the betrayal. Natalia had access to everything. Client files, billing records, my calendar, my research archives. She knew my writing style, my legal reasoning patterns, my standard memo formats. She'd weaponized that knowledge against our clients and my reputation. The firm's managing partner, Fitzgerald Dresden, knocked on my doorframe. Nelson, do you have a minute? I need to discuss the Morrison billing. My stomach dropped. What about it? They're questioning some of the research charges. Apparently, their outside auditor found similarities between your recent memo and work product from another case. They're asking for detailed time records and supporting documentation. I looked at Fitzgerald's concerned expression, realizing the trap was closing. Morrison Industries wasn't just questioning the billing. They were conducting their own investigation. If they found a recycled work product, they could file a malpractice claim, demand refunds, and report us to the Arkansas Bar Association. I'll pull together the documentation, I said. Nelson, this is serious. If there's any issue with the billing accuracy, we need to address it immediately. The firm's reputation depends on maintaining client trust. After Fitzgerald left, I opened my desk drawer and retrieved the flash drive where I'd been storing screenshots of billing entries, security footage timestamps, system access logs. Everything pointed to Natalia, but proving it would require confronting someone I'd trusted completely. I walked to her cubicle. She was reviewing deposition transcripts, highlighter in hand, looking every bit the dedicated paralegal I'd believed her to be. Natalia, can we talk privately? She looked up with the same professional smile she'd worn for 3 years. Of course. Your office? We walked back in silence. I closed the door and turned to face her. I know about the Morrison billing, the recycled research, the fabricated time entries. Her expression didn't change immediately. For a moment, she maintained the facade. Then something shifted in her eyes. Calculation replacing innocence. I don't know what you mean. I placed the printed billing records on my desk. $47,000 over 4 months. Research memos submitted under my credentials, while I was documented elsewhere. The Henderson case materials adapted for Morrison Industries. Natalia's shoulders sagged slightly. The pretense was crumbling. How long have you been stealing from our clients? She sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. It started small, just a few hours here and there when I was behind on my own work. You were always so busy, traveling to conferences, handling multiple cases. I thought no one would notice. Notice? Natalia, you've been committing fraud. These aren't just billing errors. You've been stealing research and charging clients for work that was already completed. I needed the money, Nelson. My mother's medical bills, my student loans. The paralegal salary wasn't enough. So you decided to destroy my reputation and steal from our clients? Her voice hardened. Your reputation? You think this is about you? I've been doing the real work while you take credit at conferences and bar association meetings. Those research memos? I wrote half of them anyway. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's not true, isn't it? How many times did I draft the initial research while you were in court? How many memos did I format and site check while you were networking at legal events? I just decided to get paid for my actual contributions. I stared at her, recognizing the rationalization for what it was. She'd convinced herself that stealing was justified, that fraud was somehow fair compensation for her legitimate work. Natalia, you've stolen nearly $50,000 and put our firm at risk for malpractice claims. Morrison Industries is already questioning the billing. If they file a complaint with the Bar Association, we could all lose our licenses. She stood up, composure returning. Then I guess you have a decision to make. You can report this and destroy both our careers, or we can figure out a way to handle it quietly. The threat was implicit but clear. She knew enough about our cases, our clients, and our internal operations to cause significant damage if cornered. But she'd underestimated one crucial factor. I'd already made copies of everything. There won't be any quiet handling, Natalia. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the flash drive containing copies of all the... Her face went pale as she recognized what it meant. You've already documented everything. Every altered timestamp, every duplicated memo, every fraudulent billing entry. I've also contacted our malpractice insurance carrier and scheduled a meeting with the managing partners for tomorrow morning. She sank back into the chair. Nelson, please. We can work this out. I'll pay back the money, resign quietly. No one has to know the details. Morrison Industries already knows. They're conducting their own audit of our billing records. When they find the discrepancies, they'll demand answers. The next morning, I sat in the conference room with managing partners Fitzgerald Dresden and Natalia Blackwood. The career was spread across the mahogany table like pieces of a puzzle that painted an ugly picture. The scope of the fraud extends beyond simple overbilling, I explained, pointing to the timeline I'd constructed. She systematically recycled research from previous cases, altered timestamps to make old work appear current, and charged premium rates for duplicated effort. Fitzgerald studied the billing records. How did our internal controls miss this? She had administrative access to the case management system. She could modify entries after the fact, making the fraud nearly invisible unless someone specifically looked for patterns. Natalia Blackwood, the senior partner, leaned. What's our exposure? Morrison Industries paid approximately $47,000 for duplicated work. If they file a malpractice claim, we're looking at potential damages, legal fees, and bar association sanctions. The room fell silent as the implications settled in. Our firm's reputation, built over 15 years of civil rights advocacy, hung in the balance because of one person's greed. We need to contact the Arkansas Bar Association immediately, Fitzgerald said. Full disclosure, complete cooperation. I've already prepared the initial report, I replied, sliding the document across the table. I recommend we also engage outside counsel to handle the investigation and any potential litigation. 2 days later, Detective Lisa Chen from the Financial Crimes Unit arrived at our office. She was methodical, professional, and thorough in her examination of the TA. The digital trail is comprehensive, she told me during our interview. Altered timestamps, duplicate billing entries, systematic manipulation of case records. This isn't opportunistic fraud. It's organized financial crime. What happens next? We'll coordinate with the Bar Association's disciplinary board. Given the amount involved and the systematic nature of the fraud, criminal charges are likely. The following week brought a cascade of consequences. Morrison Industries filed a formal complaint with the Arkansas Bar Association. 2 other clients, alerted by news of the investigation, requested audits of their billing records. The local legal newspaper ran a story about the ongoing investigation. carefully avoiding names but providing enough detail to damage our reputation. Natalia Dresden was arrested on charges of theft by deception and computer fraud. The arraignment was scheduled for the following month. She'd hired criminal defense counsel and was reportedly considering a plea agreement. The Bar Association's disciplinary hearing was set for 6 weeks later. I spent hours preparing testimony, organizing, and coordinating with investigators. The process was exhausting but necessary. During the hearing, I testified about the discovery process, the scope of the fraud, and the firm's response. The disciplinary board was particularly interested in our internal controls and how the fraud had gone undetected for so long. Mr. Yarborough, in your opinion, what systemic changes would prevent similar incidents in the future? Mandatory dual authorization for billing modifications, regular audits of case management system access logs, and separation of administrative and billing functions. No single employee should have the ability to alter both time entries and billing records without oversight. The board's decision came 2 weeks later. Natalia Dresden's law license was suspended pending resolution of the criminal charges. The firm received a formal reprimand for inadequate supervision, but no individual sanctions were imposed on the partners. Morrison Industries agreed to a settlement that included full restitution of the fraudulent charges plus interest. They also agreed not to pursue additional malpractice claims in exchange for enhanced billing transparency and quarterly audits for the remainder of our representation. The criminal case concluded 3 months later with a plea agreement. Natalia Dresden pled guilty to theft by deception and was sentenced to 2 years probation, community service, and full restitution. Her law license was permanently revoked. I found myself helping other attorneys who'd experienced similar betrayals. The legal community was smaller than most people realized, and word traveled quickly about firms that had been victimized by internal fraud. The hardest part isn't the financial loss, I told Fitzgerald Blackwood, a solo practitioner whose paralegal had embezzled client trust funds. It's rebuilding the trust with clients and staff. How do you move past it? You implement better systems, you document everything, and you remember that most people in this profession are honest. The bad actors are exceptions, not the rule. The firm slowly recovered. We implemented new billing procedures, enhanced our case management security, and rebuilt relationships with affected clients. Morrison Industries eventually expanded their engagement with us, citing our transparent handling of the crisis as of our integrity. But the experience had changed me. I was more cautious, more skeptical, more aware of the potential for betrayal within professional relationships. Trust, once broken, was difficult to rebuild completely. The final piece of justice came 6 months later, when the Arkansas Bar Association published new guidelines for law firm billing practices and internal controls. Our case had become a cautionary tale, but also a template for how firms should respond when fraud was discovered. 12 months later, I stood in the conference room of my new practice, watching the sunrise paint Little Rock's skyline in shades of gold. The nameplate on my desk read, Nelson Yarborough, Managing Partner. That still felt foreign after years of working within larger firm structures. The transition hadn't been easy. Starting a boutique civil rights practice required rebuilding everything from client relationships to case management systems. But the independence was worth the uncertainty. My phone buzzed with a text from Morrison Industries General Counsel. Quarterly audit complete. Clean bill of health. Thanks for everything, Nelson. The irony wasn't lost on me. The client whose case had exposed Natalia Dresden's fraud had become one of my strongest supporters. They'd followed me to the new firm, bringing 3 additional matters worth substantial retainer fees. Mr. Yarborough? My assistant knocked on the door. Your 10 o'clock is here. Sarah Mitchell entered, clutching a bar exam failure notice and looking defeated. She was the third attorney this month seeking guidance after discovering their former firm had been involved in billing irregularities. I failed the bar exam twice, she said. Both times right after discovering my supervising attorney was padding hours on client matters. I can't focus knowing what I witnessed. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Tell me what happened. For the next hour, I listened to another story of professional betrayal. Different details, same devastating impact on a young attorney's career and confidence. The exam isn't just about legal knowledge, I explained. It's about mental preparation and trust in the system. When that trust is broken, everything becomes harder. I coach bar exam retakers who were affected by firm trauma. The work was unpaid, but necessary. These attorneys needed someone who understood that professional betrayal created wounds beyond financial loss. What's your study plan for the next exam? I don't know if I should try again. Maybe I'm not cut out for this profession. The profession needs attorneys with integrity, people who've seen the worst and still choose to do better. Don't let someone else's fraud steal your career. After she left, I reviewed the afternoon schedule. 2 client meetings, a deposition review, and a conference call with opposing counsel on a discrimination case. Normal work for a normal day. The phone rang. Fitzgerald Blackwood's name appeared on the caller ID. Nelson, I wanted to thank you again. We implemented those billing controls you suggested. Caught a discrepancy last week that could have become a major problem. Glad to hear it. Prevention is always better than cleanup. Any regrets about leaving the big firm? I looked around my modest office, then at the framed Arkansas Bar Association certificate on the wall. Below it hung a smaller frame containing Morrison Industries' letter of appreciation for our exemplary handling of a difficult situation. None at all. The afternoon passed quickly. Clients came and went, each bringing their own stories of workplace discrimination, civil rights violations, and institutional betrayal. But these were fights worth having, battles where the lines between right and wrong were clear. At 6 o'clock, I locked the office and walked to my car. The parking lot was empty, except for the security guard making his rounds. No late-night billing reviews, no suspicious case management alerts, no wondering which colleagues could be trusted. The drive home took me past my old firm's building. Lights still burned in several windows, attorneys working late to meet billable hour requirements. I felt no nostalgia for that life. My phone remained silent during the drive. No emergency calls, no client crises, no partners demanding explanations for billing discrepancies. Just the quiet satisfaction of a day's honest work completed. At home, I poured a glass of wine and sat on the back porch. The evening air carried the scent of honeysuckle and the distant sound of traffic on Interstate 630. Tomorrow would bring new cases, new clients, new challenges. But tonight, for the first time in over a year, I felt completely at peace with my professional choices. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed my career had ultimately led me to something better, a practice built on transparency, integrity, and genuine service to clients who needed advocates they could trust. The wine glass caught the last rays of sunlight, casting small rainbows on the porch railing. I thought about Natalia Dresden, now working as a paralegal in another state. Her legal career permanently ended. Justice had been served, but the real victory was simpler. I'd survived the betrayal and emerged stronger. It was finally over, and the silence felt earned.